sorry? I'll change it. I'll get it changed. Ms. Diener.
If you can't feel safe in your own home, where can you feel safe? When you think about your house, you think about safety. Where you go to retreat, get away from the world. It's where you grow up. It's where your kids. It's where we mark on the inside of the doorway. And it's right here. It's where we make memories. That's why it's so sacred. That's why it's so important. How many of us during the Thanksgiving holiday learn our own traditions? Celebrate with our family. Christmas. Right now, how many of us right now have a Christmas tree in our living room? Why do we do that? Why do we put Christmas lights outside our house? Why do we decorate our home? Because they're art, right? Because they're so important. And today, that's exactly why this day is so important. Because the sanctity, the safety of our homes has been compromised by what we do. We took her away. 21 years old. The past of her life. At the hands of this defendant. The Fort Worth Police Department has good officers. In fact, I've worked with some of the best officers in the state in my career. I trust them. Trust them with my family. They actually do serve and protect. They don't have preconceived notions about the East Side. They don't go to certain parts of town and say, some deserve to be served and protected, but not others. Only the good parts. Only the parts of town that I want to go to. That's not how it works here. Because our community is all of us. And it was her too. And despite what he thought, when he went over to that house, there wasn't a deal gone bad, a robbery, a shooting, high crime area. There was a 28-year-old woman. There was a daughter, a sister, an aunt, studying to be a doctor, taking care of her nephew. Yolanda, her mom, was a good person. Zion was a good person. James Smith still lives on the East Side. He's a good person. His family are good people. When you put on that badge, when you put on that uniform, you say you're going to serve and protect us all. That means virtue. And the Fort Worth Police Department, those officers that do serve and protect us and don't have those preconceived notions, that did a thorough investigation in this case, are ashamed that they ever called somebody like him a brother and brother. Because it means something when you put on a badge. It means you don't go to a house with a preconceived notion because you want to have that kind of power. Haven't we all met an officer that just likes being an officer a little too much? I've been pulled over by those guys before. Power hungry, tunnel vision. It's a little scary to me. Those people that we feel.
Outside the record and pressure on the prosecutor's personal opinion, which is absolutely irrelevant to this
entire investigation, what did the Fort Worth Police Department determine? They talked to all of these witnesses. They looked at all of the evidence in this case. What you guys got over the last 2 weeks, that's what they have. Forensic interview for Zion, witness interviews, they talked to folks, the autopsy report, the photographs, the body camera video, frame by frame by frame, just like what we watched. They went through all of that, and they determined it's murder. They issued an arrest warrant, and a district judge signed saying, this is murder. The question in this case has never been, is it murder? The question that they raised this week was, is it self-defense? Is it self-defense? And what's really important about the court's charge is this is the law that applies. We do not view it based on what he says and only what he says. A person doesn't get to harm another, get up on the stand, and say, well, I was doing it for my life. And we just let them go. We just take their word for it. Imagine that scenario. Imagine what would happen if that were the law. Then not one single person would ever be held responsible and accountable for what they do if they can just say it is, so it is. That's not the way that it works. What the law is, and what you guys have in front of you, is that it has to be a reasonable belief and immediately necessary. And so how do we define what's reasonable? Right? That's also an important part. It's a belief that would be held by an ordinary, prudent person. All of you guys, with what he did out there, was that reasonable? Was that immediately necessary? And here's one very important part, and I can tell you right now, when they get up and talk, they don't want you to focus on this. This is the law. This is what we're charged. This is what we're bound by. Unlawful deadly force. Unlawful force. The only way that this conduct is justified by this defendant is if it's reasonable to all of you, what he did, immediately necessary. And the most important part is her, meaning Tatiana's, unlawful force towards him. Or unlawful deadly force. The only way he is justified in his conduct is that it's to the degree the actor reasonably believes the deadly force is immediately necessary to protect the actor being the defendant, against the other person, a Tatiana's use of unlawful deadly force. So think about that for a minute. What has been unlawful about what a Tatiana did? We have not seen one shred of evidence that anything that a Tatiana did was unlawful. In fact, we heard quite the opposite. You can be in your own home, owning a weapon, owning a gun, and you can protect yourself in your home. That's one of the most fundamental rights. That's the reason we all feel so safe. And Tatiana Jefferson didn't commit any criminal act by walking up to the window with her gun, thinking someone was outside. It's what many of us would do if we were in our house in the middle of the night, in the back bedroom, and we hear somebody outside. That's what you would expect us to do, to try to protect ourselves, and in this case, Zion as well. So there's not been any evidence to support anything that she did was unlawful. And you gotta have that. That's what the law says. And if you think about it, it makes sense in this case because she was in her own. If we can't feel safe there, where in the world are we gonna feel safe? This defendant, when he put on this uniform, he has a tremendous amount of power, right? A tremendous amount of power. And when we talk about what's reasonable, when he took the stand. It's exactly what is written down. It's the very thing that the defense said in opening statement. They followed all the steps and procedures as you are supposed to. An open structure is a silent alarm, and he did everything right. That is what this Jay Coombs got up here and said. He wouldn't agree with anything that we asked him, but that's the one thing he said. Everything he did was right. Well, that is not the case. The very first thing, officer receiving the call, that's him, right? He's the sheet officer. He's the main officer. He calls the shots. Step 2, B. All main exit ways should be guarded so as to prevent the escape of any defender. We start there and we finish. Right? And that was one amongst the many, 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 many things that he did wrong. Because it wasn't important to him to serve and protect that day. It was important for him to get there, get in the action. Power can corrupt certain people. Certain people don't need to wear a badge. Certain people do not need to have the power and the control if they do not respect the accountability, and in this case, the grave effect that it had. Now, you guys have the ability today, over 3.5 years, we wait. They waited. Everybody in this room, and all the rooms outside of this room, and everybody in this community has waited for today. Because today, you say you can't create the danger and then claim self-defense. We want to feel safe in our own home. Today, you guys' decision in this case, finding him guilty, says, I'm holding you responsible. I'm holding you accountable. I'm following the law. And with the power you all have today, which is more power today to change lives, to hold people accountable than most people have. The power you guys have today is to hold him responsible, is to tell them it all wasn't in vain. It's to say that she matters. You matter. East side matters. We protect everyone. And the law agrees. Everything in this case, all of the evidence in this case, is demanding a guilty verdict. That is exactly what we are asking for from all of you today. We know what he does with power. Find him guilty.
You need the lights. Mr. Gill.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to first thank you for the time you spent here the last week and a half, and all the attention you paid to this case. I mean, it's obvious to me, sitting over here on the other side of the courtroom, that you all take this case very seriously. You paid very close attention. You took a lot of notes. You're very involved in this case, and we appreciate it. Well, thank you for your service. On my behalf, co-counsel Miles, on behalf of Aaron, on behalf of his family. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service. And I can tell you that it is a very humbling experience to stand up in front of you when you're about to judge my client and have a few minutes to address you and point out to you what I think is important about this case. And the first thing that's important about the case is this jury charge. And then the judge sets out the law that you'll follow during your deliberation. And one thing that the court charge doesn't point out, is it's very obvious from everything we've heard in this courtroom this week, is this whole thing is a tragedy. And I'm not going to stand up in front of you and tell you it's not, because it is. It's a tragedy. It was a tragedy on October 12th. It was a tragedy on October 13th. And it's been a tragedy every day since then, and it will continue to be one. But a tragedy doesn't always equal a crime. It doesn't always equal a law violation. Because as the judge points out to you in this chart, and as the state pointed out to you during their opening argument, Tatiana Jefferson had the right to the sanctity of her home. She had the right to protect Zion. The prosecutor called it a fundamental right, even a sacred right. You know what that right is? That's the right of self-defense. And it's the right of defense of a third person, as the judge explains it to you in this charge. And those are fundamental and sacred rights that we have as citizens of the state of Texas. And the judge explains to you that Aaron Dean, as a citizen of the state of Texas, has a right to self-defense. He has the right to defend himself. He has the right to defend a third person, Carol Darby. He has those rights. And the rights we have as citizens, the right to protect ourselves, the right to protect in our home, and Tatiana Jefferson's right the night of October 12th of 2019, she had those rights up until the point she pointed a firearm at a Fort Worth police officer. Because we never, under the law, ever have the right to point a firearm at a uniformed police officer. The rights stop there. Because that conduct is a first-degree felony under the laws of the state of Texas. And it's a crime. And it's an unlawful act. The judge also tells you in this jury charge that even though Aaron has been arrested for this and charged and indicted, that is not any evidence of his guilt. That the standards for arresting someone and charging someone are very low. The standard of proof of beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest standard we have under our law. It doesn't take much to arrest or charge someone. But it takes a lot of evidence to convict someone, and that's the way our law ought to be. That's been our law from day one when this country was founded. When we passed the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that's been our law. It's been the law ever since, and it's the law today. Not only does the state have to convict a person of a crime beyond a reasonable doubt, you heard from this jury charge that the state has to remove all doubt in your mind as to whether or not this was self-defense or defense of a third person. When the judge includes that in the jury charge, it's the state's burden beyond a reasonable doubt to disprove it. The state, in this case, has to prove beyond any and all reasonable doubt that Aaron Dean was not lawfully defending himself or